looking at development of the banking sector, there has been some issues and discussions around the role of banking, traditional banking, but majorly impacting provision of financing, even to the bottom line. What do you think should be the way forward in this regard?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned and as others mentioned, the thing is that traditional bankers need to begin to see others that are playing that space as members of the same family. And, they shouldn't see fintech and telcos and insurance companies as competition. Rather, they should see it as an extension of the family and a new way to go. This very same way that the makers of typewriters saw the makers of computers as an extension of the family and not something that is different. Because, in part of the interventions today, there was a question of, well, you need to collaborate with fintech, you need to partner with fintech. But I think we need to go beyond that because what we see is that it is the digital media that would form point-to-point for intermediation in banking services. You'll find that there are paperless, buildingless companies that are putting lender and borrower together and at the same time putting the purchaser and the seller together. So you find one single fintech company that works for, say for instance, fast food seller, provides the fast food seller market to sell his goods, collects money from those guys, gives credit to the fast food seller, gives credit to the supplier of the fast food seller. So in one house, suddenly you have someone that is linking buyer, seller, borrower, lender without any paper, without any building. Now they're doing a very great thing because they're providing financial service to the underbanked and those that are unable to reach brick and mortar banking. So what I think we need to begin to look at, and very seriously, is for CBN especially to begin to change its paradigm, because what I find is that seems CBN's attitude to these positive disruptive forces in financial intermediation is seeing them as interlopers and people to regulate the way they regulate people that have brick and mortar, that are deposit takers. But that's not what these guys are. And so the model has to change. Central bank has to change its model. It has to move away from giving licenses to these institutions over 1 year, as if it was giving license to someone who's about to raise 50 billion naira from the public, to seeing them as nimble and agile entities that also need to be dealt with on the same basis. My central thesis is this, that the regulator should not view banking as too big. Central bank itself should not see itself as too big, because the complaint of some regulators is that central bank thinks it is too big and engages in regulatory capture or land grabbing. So while CBN should not see itself as too big, nobody should see banking industry as too big, and no bank should be seen as too big to fail. Because we know, with ARIC for instance, which was too big to fail, which was 60% of the air industry, failed. So the thing that I think we should focus on is what are those drivers that would make sure that the consumer is reached, the consumer is satisfied, and that we as consumers get the best price. Now, if it means that we need a big institution, then that's fine. But then the regulator must be in a position to regulate that big institution in a manner to ensure that its failure will not bring about major problems in the market. So, for instance, AMCON today stepped into the problems of ARIC in order to stem the huge problems we would have had if 60% of the planes that could carry us no longer can carry us. Yes, there is a tension to consider, but I think the thing is to move away from the paradigm of anyone is too big to fail.